So let's start playing with this palette. Look how pretty the shade is. Hey guys, my name is Aijing and that is pronounced like Beijing with an I. Today I'm super relaxed. I've got my hair hung up, super messy. I'm in my t-shirt, in my pajamas, and I just want to play with the Sigma Enchanted Eyeshadow palette. Ta-da! It is very pretty. I have used this a couple times already, so I'm going to do some swatches. I'm going to do 3 different looks with it, but honestly I'm just in the mood to play with makeup. It's going to be super relaxed and play with makeup with me. Okay, so let's get started. So this is a 14 shades eyeshadow palette. It's got a variety of finishes of matte, shimmers, metallics. It's got this really pretty kind of colourful colour story, but it's also very neutral at the same time. I got this on Beauty Bay, I think, but you can find it on Feel Unique as well if you live in the UK. Currently it's only £32.35 on Feel Unique, and normally it costs £40.35. And it also comes with a Sigma brush. This is a very nice brush. Most of the eyeshadow palette brushes are crap, but this is actually really good. Of course it comes with a mirror. I'm not going to blind you with that, and I'll do some swatches and insert the pictures at the end of the video, and I just really want to get started with a look now.
So the first thing I'm doing is using the shade Innocent, which is a pale pink matte shade, and then I'm using that almost all over my eyelid and basically staying above my eye fold. So what I'm saying about my eye fold is that, you know, that line that actually folds when I open my eyes is not necessarily the eye crease, because people use eye crease kind of for all sorts of things. So I'm just trying to make it clear that I'm pulling it above my eye fold like a transitioning color. And then I'm using the shade Plume, which is a very nice sparkly pink purpley shade, and as you can notice, I am just using the brush from the palette. I did try to use the flat end of the brush first, but it didn't apply the color very well, so then I started using my fingertips instead. However, for more precise application, I did go back to using the brush and deepen the color in the inner and outer corners of my eye. And then I started blending out the shimmering color into the light matte pink so that everything looks a bit more seamless. And then what I did was actually just deepen that shimmering shade even more so that the parts that got blended away had some more pigment added back on. Now I'm going into the lower lash line with the shade Cosmos, again still using the brush from the palette, and I am just putting this in the outer half 2/3 of my bottom lash line. The shade had a little bit of fallout, so I'm just dusting it away with my brush. Then I went into the shade called Budding, again another shimmery shade, but this time a light pink shade, and I'm putting that over the kind of inner half of my lower lash line.
So I feel like you can basically switch the placement of this eyeshadow, so you can do inner corner of light pink up here, then the green in the outer corner, and then the bright purple for the lower lash line instead, and there you go. That's your second look with the same colours. But I'm just going to apply eyeliner and mascara, and I'll be right back. Applied a little bit of winged black eyeliner and applied some mascara. I think this will look great with some lashes on as well, but I am actually just going to take this off in 5 minutes, so I didn't bother putting on eyelashes. But anyway, this is look 1. I think that's pretty. Quite smoky, quite sexy. I'm going to do a shimmery look on the other eye as well, but I'm going to use more of the lighter, kind of more pastel colours. So what I'm going to do is actually start off with some eyeliner, and I'm going to use Whiplash by Linda Hallberg. That's what it looks like. It's this sparkly, very light sparkly brown shade.
I am using this pencil pretty haphazardly. I am going over my waterline as well and just lining my entire upper lid. I really don't care about the neatness of this because, as you can see, I'm going to just blend it out with a brush for a smoky base kind of thing. I do think this pencil was making my eye a little bit irritated. It was watering a little bit and going slightly pink. I think you can see that in the video clip. Anyway, I just kept adding and blending until I got the shape and intensity that I wanted. Now I'm using the shade Loam, which is a matte neutral brown shade in the palette, and I'm using that shade now to wing out the shade that I already had put down from the pencil, and I am going back in the shadow and blending and going back in and blending. I did have to grab a different brush because I wanted something just a little bit smaller to blend out the wing a little bit better, a little bit more precisely, and I did do the wing pretty big, so what I'm doing now is just using a piece of tissue paper to make it smaller, kind of correct it, basically just rubbing off the bits where I didn't actually want the eyeshadow. So that's a pretty good trick that you can use. Next, I'm using the metallic pink shade called Moonglade all over my eyelid, and I am applying it over the metallic eye pencil that I used and the matte brown shade. In that case, I feel like the bit where you had the brown pigment, it will add depth, and a bit where you didn't have the brown pigment, the pure pink color will be more obvious. And again, I applied with a brush first, but not enough pigment, so then I went in with my finger. However, I still wasn't very happy with the amount of pigment from my finger, so what I actually did was wet the brush, and that gave the most opacity and intensity of this color. I first blended out the shade Moonglade with a clean brush, but then I went in and grabbed the shade Quartz, which is a matte cream shade, to actually just blend out the color a little bit better. Then I went back in with the shade Loam to actually deepen the outer corner a little bit more, to just give that definition back a tiny bit. I basically kind of added that wing shape back into my eye, and I kept adding and blending, adding and blending.
I wish this lilac was a little bit more sparkly. It's really metallic rather than shimmery, so I wish it was more of a shimmer finish like this nice pink on this eye, but it's not the case, unfortunately.
Now I am taking the shade Sunburst in my inner corner. This is a metallic light yellowy shade, which is very pretty, but again I was struggling with getting the pigment out of the shadow, both with a dry brush and my finger. It applied a lot better after the brush was wet. I went back into the shade Budding, which is a shade we used in the first eye look, and just applied that all over my lower lash line, kind of as a base transition shade. Then I went back to the shade Moonglade, which is the shade we used all over the upper eyelid. I used it over my lower lash line also. Then I grabbed Whiplash, the eye pencil from Linda Halbert Cosmetics again, and used it to tight line my waterline, my upper waterline and my lower waterline. I think this was making my eye water a little bit. I have used her pencils in other colours on my eyelid before, not used it in the waterline, and when I've used it on my eyelid I have had no issues. So I'm wondering whether I am maybe a bit sensitive to this. I need to try out this product a little bit more, but I really do like the colour of it. And then I just dusted the fallout from my eyes. Honestly, there wasn't very much fallout at all from these two shades.
So I feel like even though that waterline has made my eyes look a little bit smaller, it's just added a little bit of smokiness to an otherwise very light look. So this is mascara applied for the second look. I find that this is, a bit more of a pastel soft shade, but I put the eyeliner on the lower waterline to kind of just make it a little bit smoky, a little bit sexier, but obviously you don't have to do that. So, but anyway, I'll cover up the other eye so it's less distracting, and this is the second look. I'm gonna wash both of these off now.
So onto the third look. I am using the shade Quartz, which is the cream matte whitish nude colour all over my eyelid as a base. And then I went in with the shade Evergreen, which is a dark matte green colour. I am first just packing it onto the eyelid because I really want that full pigment to come through. This shade had a lot of fallout. I was really struggling with that. The matte shades were really powdery and they had quite a bit of kickback, but that's how they were so pigmented as well. So but that does create a problem for fallout. So after packing on the shades, I did try to blend the shade out. So I was packing it on, then blending it out, packing it on, then blending it out. You can even see the powdery kickback from the eyeshadow in the video if you look closely. But I was really struggling with blending this shade out. It was going really patchy, and in order to try to blend it out, the area of this matte green shade just got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I carried on, so then I went in with the shade Wicked, which is a matte black, and as you can see, lots of fallout from the shade. So I was using the same technique as I did with the green shade, so kind of packing it on with a paddle brush and then trying to blend it out. This is me trying to clean up the fallout that I had and going over with my concealer brush. But I really struggled with these two shades, trying to do controlled blending, because obviously you can blend from a small area to a big area, but I wanted to only apply the eyeshadow to, you know, the lower half of my eyelid, but it just kept going and going and going because I needed to blend it. So it was just not going well, unfortunately. I wanted to create a kind of all matte smoky eye look, but I really couldn't achieve the desired effect that I was going for. Then I used the shade Claystone, so I think that is one of the other matte shades we haven't used yet, and I'm putting that over my lower lash line. Again, trying to persevere with my all over smoky look. I think the matte brown shade blended out relatively easily, but I wanted to keep the green, so I put Evergreen over my lower lash line as well. But that was a mistake because things just got out of control, and also my eye just kept watering, so it was creating a patch in the outer corner of my eye. I think my eye was still maybe a little bit irritated from the Linda Hallberg eye pencil, so things were just not going well for me. Because of how much struggle that green shade was to blend out, so obviously my lower lash line was so much smokier than I wanted it to be. So now I'm just trying to clean it up with a piece of tissue again. I am tugging on my eyelid pretty hard. I don't recommend doing this because the eyelid area is quite delicate, and I do think I was definitely being a bit too rough there. I kept blending and just taking away, but you can see I was just making a huge mess for myself. At this point, I just look like I have a black eye. And you can see my eye kept watering as well, so that my eyeshadow just wouldn't stick onto my outer corner. So because I really didn't like how my eyeshadow was looking, I thought let's put the shimmering shade Cosmos all over it to try and save it, because a smoky shimmering look is much better than just a smoky patchy matte eyeshadow look. So I put the shade Cosmos over my lower lash line as well to just do an all over smoky sparkly green eye look. Then I used the shade Electrum over my lower lash line. The Electrum shade is another more shimmering finish eyeshadow in this palette, and it was a dirty gold color. It is really cool shade. I really liked it. After blending out my eyeshadow a little bit more, I was just doing a little bit more cleaning up. and at this point I sort of gave up on putting eyeshadow color in that outer corner of that eye because it just kept watering, nothing was sticking. So what I did was actually purposefully take away eyeshadow from that area. Then I created a winged out shape by using that piece of tissue. At this point, I was a woman with a plan. I went back with the shade Cosmos, so the sparkling green shade, and winged out my lower lash line. And this created, you know, kind of like a double wing sort of situation with a little bit of negative space. I thought about leaving that area completely blank, but actually I decided to go in with the shade Budding to fill up that space. Then I also went back with the shade Electrum, which was the dirty gold color, and put that in my inner corner as well as the lower lash line.
Okay, so like I said, this eye was a real journey. Started off as this super blown out matte green look that I did not like, and then I started off with Cosmos. It made things a little bit better, but then my eye kept watering, so in the end my solution was to do a little bit of negative spacing and put the shade Budding between the space, and I've just applied mascara and put a little bit of Electrum, the kind of dirty gold shade and palette, in my inner corner, and I think this is actually a pretty cool look. I would not have made this look just with the plan to make this look. Does that make sense? So this was quite a happy accident. I think with eyelashes it will look a lot better, but like I said, I am going to take this off in 5 minutes. I'm not going to apply false eyelashes. I just have mascara, but I think this looks really cool. So I'm going to cover up my eye again, and this is a third look. Unexpected, unplanned, but looks pretty cool.
So for the fourth look, I'm starting off with a shade called Terra, which is a warm brown terracotta matte shade, and the shade is called Terra because it's a terracotta shade. I see what they did there. Very funny, very funny. Anyway, as you can see, I'm kind of struggling with blending out this shade as well. Obviously it wasn't as tricky as the shade Evergreen or the shade Wicked, but that's just because I'm using less of it. So I'm, you know, starting off with a blending brush and blending it out rather than trying to pack it on and then blending it out. But I am not 100% happy with the shade, to be honest. It does look pretty patchy. I did also apply this shade in my inner corners because I am trying to go for a halo eye look, but overall I was just really struggling with blending this shade out properly as well, and trying to control the blending, trying to control the placement. The tricks I like to use is actually blending out the area with my concealer brush to dampen the shade, dampen the colour, and bring everything back in, which is what I'm doing in this clip. And I hope you can see that I have really left the center part of my eyelid completely blank, so I did not apply any of the Terra shade on the center part of my eyelid. And then I just repeated the process on my lower lash line with the shade Terra, so a little bit in the outer corner and a little bit on the inner corner. Then I'm using the shade Metamorphosis, which is a duochrome shade that has got a green brown kind of shift. I started off with packing it with my finger, wasn't giving me a great amount of pigment, then went in with a wet brush and it was a lot better. As I am doing a halo eye look, I am only putting the shade Metamorphosis right on the center of my upper eyelid, and I'm also putting it right on the center of my lower eyelid as well. And then I just blend it all out with my fluffy brush that comes with the palette.
And final look with the Sigma Enchanted palette. So I feel like this look actually works quite well without eyeliner and just lots of mascara, and it gives this kind of moody romantic vibe. I really like it. Okay, yeah, I know I look scary. But I've just finished all of my looks from this palette. Ended up doing 4 looks instead, and I have used every single shade and I have some thoughts. Okay, so first of all, it's not a cheap palette, it's around £40. So let's just talk about the good things. First of all, very nice packaging, really beautiful. The brush, excellent, can't complain. The shimmers in this palette are really stunning, and the standout shimmers are definitely this dirty gold Electrum and this pink called Plume and this green called Cosmos. Those are definitely the 3 best shades in the palette. And in particular, I actually really like how they laid out the shade, because if you just go with these 4 squares, that's a look. With these 4 squares, that's a look. You know, these 4 squares, I think I can do a look. Yeah, I actually really enjoy how they laid the colour out. I really, really like that. Let's talk about the bad things now in this palette. The metallic shades. So this shade here, Moonglade, and this yellow shade, Sunburst. Unfortunately, they're not that pigmented. They are very pretty shades, but they take a lot of building. You definitely need to use a wet brush to get the full pigment. The shade Budding is pretty nice. Not as nice as the shimmering shades that I was talking about before, but better than Sunburst and Moonglade that I just mentioned. The shade Metamorphosis, which is a dual chrome shade, I feel like this shade has been done quite a few times. I have singles in this shade from other brands. This one has less pigment in the base, so it's a little bit more shimmery. So I guess it depends on your personal preference in terms of the finish of the eyeshadow, whether you prefer this kind of formulation or a little bit more pigment in the base. Now the mattes, okay. Quartz and Innocent, which are the 2 lighter shades in the palette, so the cream here and the pink here, they're okay, they're fine, because you just kind of put them on crease, you kind of blend them out, you know, you're not packing them on, you don't expect them to perform super well, or you don't need them to perform super well. They're fine. But the darker mattes are definitely a little bit more tricky to work with. I really struggled with the shade Evergreen. I also struggled a little bit with Terra. I mean, to be honest, I struggled with all of the matte shades. They are a little bit tricky to blend. I don't like them that much, to be honest, and I think the shade Evergreen is quite unique. You don't have many dark matte green shades around in palettes, but I think it's quite difficult to formulate as well. It's a bit with the mattes. So overall, would I recommend this palette? I think this is a nice palette overall. The standout shades are definitely the shimmers, so if you don't have similar single shades in the shimmers, then by all means get this palette. Enjoy experimenting with it. I created some really fun looks with it that I do enjoy, I'm not gonna lie. But in terms of the mattes, they are definitely more common shades I can find in other palettes other than this green, although this green is not that well formulated, so there's no need to get this palette for the matte green. And even though there are neutral colours in here and you can wear the neutral colours every day for an everyday look, because how tricky the matte formula is a little bit to work with, I wouldn't recommend getting this palette thinking you can use this for every day, purely because you're going to spend a lot of time blending your eyeshadow, and if you're trying to do your makeup in 5 minutes and run through the door, you want an eyeshadow palette that's just going to work super easily and blend itself out, especially with the matte shades, and unfortunately this eyeshadow doesn't really do that. I'm just looking at my super dramatic look in the mirror. I feel like it's going to be a Marmite look. Some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. I mean, it's just makeup. Makeup is fun. But so anyway, I've done some swatches on my arm. I'm going to insert the pictures now. And I will see you in my next video, which will be whenever I have time to film and edit, because I work full-time as an eye doctor, in case you didn't know that about me. Yes, I'm very serious in real life. Anyway, bye. my face is really big. Hello, this is me super zoomed up. Okay, let's do some eye looks. Well, this is weird.